All right. Good day, everyone. This is CJ, and we are live. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Rogue 420 Interviews. And I'm very excited today to be joined by Abigail Dar. Abigail is the mother of an autistic son. She's also a researcher and advocate for cannabis for autism in Israel. Now, I've had the pleasure of interviewing Abigail before, and I'm very excited to catch up with her. I believe it's been close to a year, and Abigail's been doing amazing work with her family and with advocacy for cannabis for autism. And she's going to walk us through why cannabis is, as a whole plant, is so effective for treating autism. She was recently featured in an article in Herb magazine, specifically talking about, CBD, but we're going to talk about numerous topics, and I'm very excited to have Abigail with me today. So Abigail, welcome. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. I'm good.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, and it's a great time to catch up with you and your family. I know that you probably have shared a little bit around your son, your family, and why you started utilizing cannabis as a treatment. Can you share with us a little bit around the background information, your son, the story about having to switch vehicles for safety reasons? Please share with our family, take us back in history a little bit, please.
Well, I have 3 boys. My eldest, Yuval, he's 24 years old now. He's severely autistic, he's nonverbal, and we adore him, we love him. And along the years, we had what we all know in our parents' community, what we call behavioral issues, which became quite impossible when he was 12. Then we started medications, risperidone. Then they stopped working. We had to add something more and something more. And Yuval also developed seizures, epilepsy at the age of 16. And then the behavioral issue became impossible. Like he would outburst and be very self-injurious. And when he couldn't handle the anxiety anymore, he would attack me. And it made life impossible. And we tried every antipsychotic medication available. And we realized after a few, when he was 18, it was obvious the medication don't work. And even maybe cause him, he doesn't talk, so he doesn't say it, but he didn't look, it was going down the hill. So we weaned him off very slowly from all antipsychotic medications, and he was better without them. And a lot of time, I'm no doctor, so I'm not recommending medications. But a lot of time we parents come into a loop where we give our child something, it works. It is known as the honeymoon period. It's a well-known thing. After a while it stopped working and we go up with the dosing and up with the dosing, and then it doesn't work, then we change medication. And altogether the kid is impossible. And we are saying to ourselves, well, if he's like this with the medication, I can't imagine how he will be without them, without even checking the idea that maybe he'll be better without them. Do I make sense?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I think for the most part, every parent would do the same thing, right?
But we parents, sometimes we live through very complicated situations. The kid is very difficult for himself and for us, and we can't think that there's nothing we can give that wouldn't work for him, that wouldn't help him calm down his anxiety, and we weaned off Yuval, but it was still not as difficult as it was with medication. We had another 2 rough years, and then I appealed for medical cannabis, and after 2 appeals and again, I was very persistent with that. He was one of the first in Israel who received access, but it wasn't for autism, it was under compassionate treatment. And we started treating him, and from day one, it was a game changer. I'm not saying cannabis, Yuval is still very autistic. We still have our ups and downs. We have good days and less good days, but it's manageable. It's not, you don't live in the chaos we lived before. So I became an advocate, and I went on TV in Israel, and a lot of parents were coming to me, and it was a long wait, 2.5 years, very intensive ones. But we already have in Israel by now over 600 kids with autism having legal access to cannabis. And we gather the data, not of all of them, but about 200 of them already, about what exactly they are getting in terms of the profile. Because cannabis is not just one thing. Cannabis is a plant. Plant has strains. Thousands of compounds, over 140 cannabinoids, terpenes, flavonoids, and then there's the human body who's different. We differ from each other, and there's no one strain or one compound that will affect the same all of us. So what we are trying to do is starting understanding statistically what compounds are playing the major game there.
Absolutely. And whenever you began utilizing cannabis for your son and his autism, what kind of changes did you see with your son?
First of all, if Yuval would have bite himself, which I call self-injurious behavior, and then attack me, if it would happen on a weekly basis, and in some days I would lock myself in the room because I was like haunted animal in the house, which sounds terrible, but I adore him. I know it's his anxiety. I can say we had outbursts, I think in the last 2.5 years, about 3 times. And it's a big change. I'm not afraid to be with him anymore. I can take care of him. I'm not worried whether he'll outburst suddenly, and I wouldn't know, because physically he's stronger than me. He's a big guy, strong young man. So this is a very big difference. Also, he's more attentive. He listens more. He's more smiling. Usually he sleeps better. He lost a lot of weight, which is good because he was a bit overweight when he was on medications. Antipsychotics also give you appetite, and they eat a lot, so he's in good shape now. And for me, it's fun.
Yeah, that's very good because, I know that here in the U.S., and we talked about this before we went live, and the Herb magazine specifically talked about, CBD, CBD being able to be utilized. And so right now, kind of CBD kind of has a very captivating audience here in the United States, primarily because it is so new. In my state, for example, the governor just now signed off legalizing CBD. And I know we can go back and forth as far as it was covered in the Farm Bill and everything else, but he, signed a bill that was submitted. So there is a lot of interesting people right now regarding CBD. But one of the most important things is full medical cannabis and legalization. It's just so important to understand. And can you jump into a little bit around CBD and THC and why it's important, the whole plant?
I'll give you the basics, the way I work with parents, because what I try is to organize for them understanding a little bit about cannabis. So if I try to say very shortly, we're talking about a plant. A plant has strains, okay? Even apples, there's few kinds of apples and oranges. With cannabis, there are a lot of strains. Scientifically, we know about the active compounds in the cannabis, which are unique to the cannabis plant, called cannabinoids. Scientifically, we know there are over 140 cannabinoids already discovered. Also, there are terpenes and flavonoids. Each strain has a different profile of 30-40 cannabinoids, which means that if you give a whole plant which has THC, CBD, there are also another 28 or 38 other cannabinoids there in the game. So THC and CBD are definitely very important. therapeutic. They have comparatively there's high value of them in each plant. They are definitely important. THC is causing what you would think about cannabis what you know about him recreationally. It's psychoactive. It makes you the high. It gives you the munchies. But it's also very therapeutic. It's a pain reliever. It does a lot of therapeutic work, while CBD is the antipsychotic compound. It doesn't make you high. It's not psychoactive. And regarding our kids, we know it's anti-inflammatory, and that in certain dosing, it will lower the anxiety. Now, when you come to think about treating children, very vulnerable children, it is right. I mean, CBD is safer than THC, right? CBD is not psychoactive. Mm-hmm. And I think also on the autism spectrum, there's comorbidity with epilepsy and also with psychotic situations. I can't ignore it. So I take the population of autistic people as a vulnerable one. So when I try helping with cannabis, I will always go to try first strains with higher CBD. It's like if you have a headache, you first try Advil before taking morphine, right?
Correct, yes.
Some of the kids, and we see it again and again, need more THC. And the amount it is stoning them or making them making them high or stoned, whatever, it's also a matter of dosing. It's like, if I'll take a glass of red wine now and drink it, or I'll drink a whole bottle of vodka, I would respond differently. So saying cannabis makes our kids stoned is quite crazy when you give them medications, when you trust the carer not to stone him, but to make sure he feels better. And if a kid suffers and this thing makes him feel better and be more attentive and being able to we have a lot of steaming and sensory issues, and it makes them more organized. What's wrong with that?
Right. No, you're absolutely correct, and your sharings and your perspectives. I don't want to go into too much of a tangent about it, but one of the things that I do want to talk a little bit is around the overprescribing of traditional prescription medications to our children. And that's something I think that people need to understand, that we've experienced that. We have firsthand experience of some of the psychotropics, and that they're counterproductive to help our kids. Can you share a little bit around that, please?
Look, the kids I'm taking care of hands-on, okay? There are over 200 now. So I don't have the statistic, but so many times I get parents of autistic 4, 5-year-old that is already on antipsychotics, and I'm just shocked. I mean, there's no one single research showing what these medications do in the long term. These medications are aimed for grown-ups. They are using them, and we have here, I don't know how it's in America, but here a parent doesn't want to give medication, and sometimes the education system, try to persuade them to give the kid medications. And, I started giving Yuval risperidone when he was 12. I'm not judging any parent. I know how difficult it can be. But the easy way in which so many doctors prescribe these medications is just wrong. There's so many other practices, therapies we can go through with our kids before giving them medications, and a lot of them.
You're correct. And that's probably one of the things that's very frustrating to me, is that when you hear certain states and the legalization of medical cannabis, you hear time after time again that the studies need to be concluded first, that the research needs to be concluded. I'm like, wait a minute. Do you not understand that these prescription medications that are being prescribed have not been researched of children of that age? So it just sounds to me just very uninformed as to what cannabis, the whole plant of what it can do. And you're in Israel. I think that we've kind of shared at the beginning to our audience regarding your work there, and you're actually participating in clinical studies. And to me, I think you stated that Israel is full medical cannabis, and that's in the country, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So, and I also know that they're developing certain strains specifically towards autism families. So could you share a little bit around the clinical studies that you're participating in and how it's going?
Well, there's the Sharet Tzedek clinical study of Dr. Adi Aran, which is only one strain, which is, from what I see, it's not enough. It's not enough because I see again and again that one strain with the same CBD in ratio wouldn't work for one kid, and then we switch strain with the same CBD and THC ratio, and it will work for him. So it's not only CBD and THC there. There are a whole gang, what Professor Meshulam called the entourage effect, that works there. The fact that we don't know exactly what works there doesn't mean it doesn't work, right? We
Correct,
just
yes.
don't know exactly how THCV, CBDV, CBDA, or whatever compounds, other compounds there are doing the work, not to talk about terpenes. So there is a clinical study, but it's only one strain. But most Israeli kids are treated in two other companies here that originally they have a very concentrated high CBD oils, whole plant, ethanol extracted, because historically it started here with kids with drug-resistant epilepsy. So
yes.
And then they found out that it also affects behavior. So most Israeli kids are treated by two other companies or strain other than the Sharet Tzedek medical with quite a huge success. There's nothing. Sometimes I'm a parent, and I hate to sell dreams to parents like me.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to make them, when I talk to them before we start the treatment, I try to level the expectations. If you're a parent and you expect to give cannabis and have no more issues with your child, no more restlessness, get it. The autism is here to stay. I'm sorry. What we do see is that behaviors are more controllable, or the kid itself is more, it helps him to manage his difficulties better. Mm-hmm. And I'm very reluctant saying it, but I see more and more kids that at younger ages, when they get it, when they take cannabis, they improve their verbal communication, which is amazing.
Yeah, and we're seeing that time after time again. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm afraid of it because it's like a bit, when you're a parent of autistic nonverbal child and you think something will help your child talk and it doesn't, it's very difficult. So you have to be very cautious when saying this thing.
Sure.
But I do see it. Mainly with the treatment succeed with parents who are willing to make a process. They don't think it's like, you tell me to take 2 drops 3 times a day and it will do this and that.
Yeah, and what you just said is so important, Abigail, primarily for level setting with parents, right? Because now there's so many companies that are promoting CBD oil as the cure-all. Oh, CBD this and that. And I don't want to discredit CBD at all, but I also want to. But
I'm saying it's not cure for all. It's an amazing plant. It's for a reason our body responds so well to it. I just saw research saying I lost my line. What was I saying? I'm sorry.
That's okay. We're talking about CBD oil level setting, that there's certain therapies are going to work for certain kids and maybe certain therapies that won't work for others. And it's important for parents to understand that.
But CBD alone, it's not enough. And what happens is because of the laws, it's easier to sell CBD. Right?
Yeah, correct. Yes. I mean, I think primarily nationally, you're absolutely correct. I know there's organizations that are working very hard to get medical cannabis legalized for kids with autism. And I think that, you work with one of those organizations. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
You mean Mama?
Yes, Mama. I'm sorry, I didn't even say the name, did I? Yes, Mama. Mothers Advocating Medical Marijuana for Autism, and they're making great strides here in the U.S. A few states that have flipped. That's a challenge we get to here, and that's why, as a whole, if the federal government can act to remove cannabis from the schedule, because even when we do legalize medical cannabis, then we have actually.
You can't research it as long as it's at the federal level. As long as it's classified as the most severe, class A, 1, I don't know.
Yeah, Schedule 1.
You're unable to do proper research.
Yeah, the research. So then as states legalize, we're still fighting to get autism as a qualifying condition, which, doesn't make much sense. But again, I don't want to step too far away from the conversation because
I know, but also what I'm saying that even parents, when they get access, take a deep breath and learn a little bit and work out what exactly works for your child. And it's not only about CBD and THC there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Abigail, how can our listeners learn more about your work, about the research? How can they support you and your family? Because with the work that you're doing in Israel right now is just so important to the autism community.
I'm setting up now a clinic because I came to a point where I cannot help all the parents, and we are developing treatment protocols while doing the hands-on work and doing the analysis. And I hope we'll be able to better understand so we can better help the kids. How they can support me? No.
Okay. Well, we'll follow up.
I always away for the next week. It's a holiday here.
Well, I always enjoy our conversations, and I'm so thankful for you affording the time to share your knowledge, share your wisdom, and I just want to thank you so much for Abigail for your work and that you're doing. So thank you so much. Any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I think, I told you I'm a mother. I hate selling magic or promises. I think there's something here which is a breakthrough. This plant has to be researched and investigated and allow us parents and carers to have access to it for our kids. I don't say it's 100% works for everybody. There's nothing that works 100%. No medication in the world will, but I want all of us to be in a state when we come to the doctor, as the kids are 3 or 4 or 5, like we talked about, and the doctor offers us all those psychotropic medications. Okay, I'm not into fighting the pharma. I just want cannabis to be an option. I want the carer or the parent to make the decision what he's going to try for his child. Well, I believe in cannabis. I wish I had it when Yuval was younger.
Yeah, very, very well said. Very well said. So Abigail Dar, everyone. Abigail, thank you so much for being with us today. This is CJ with Rogue 420. Please make sure to like this video. Please make sure to share this in your community. It's just so important that we continue to break down, that we share the knowledge that can be gained regarding cannabis and its medicinal properties that can help. And then also subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter as well. So Abigail, thank you so much for being with us today.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.